Hey guys, welcome to Right Side Patriot Updates. In today's video, we're going to be interviewing a financial analyst. Her name is Susan. Susan, how you doing today?
Great. Thank you, Kevin, for having me. What a lovely um, series of videos you're doing.
Thank you, Susan. So, could you tell the people your background in finance?
Sure. I started in finance in like early 1990s. I took a job. I started as an auditor at a mutual fund company. I wasn't very interested in the process of things that were scheduled and happening the same way all the time on schedules. So two of the executives, one from the fixed income side, one from the equity side, who were 30 years my senior. They were about 50 and I was about 23. They took me under their wing and taught me everything they knew. I managed a money market fund. I ended up backing them up on equity funds. I did all the overnight commercial paper purchases. I did all the currency exchanges for our worldwide funds that were country based and placed all the trades for those funds, placed both here in the US for US residents and those for European residents. And after 9 or 10 years, I became their first international investment officer. When I left there, I moved to a bank because part of my job had been investing for trust departments that did not have their own investment groups. So I had about 50 banks in the 90s that I invested for. So this would have been your trusts and IRAs and things along those lines. And on the fixed income side, we had a bunch of very large pensions. So we did that. And then I moved to a bank that was only in Connecticut, so I didn't need to travel as much in 2000. I signed my letter of intent on March 9th, 2000, which was the day before the tech wreck. And I finished up at my firm for my performance purposes and training my assistant, and then moved in April into a whole new market and managed money there until 2015 for 15 years. I was strategic. I was in charge of all the fixed income during 2008 and the downturn in the credit crisis. We grew from about $500 million to $1 billion under management my first 5 years there. There were 5 of us. We did everything soup to nuts for our clients. And in 08, we became one of the second safest bank in the country, as we had no Alt-A or subprime debt in the bank. And in the wealth management department at the time, the trust investment management group, we had $1.1 million out of $1 billion in Lehman Brothers bonds. So that was like 0.001% of our assets. So I remained there, and after 08, we were assigned to take on some other smaller banks by the FDIC. Then we merged across all of New England and grew substantially. I then left for a small firm, and you know how things go. A smaller firm just wanted all my contacts and didn't necessarily want to pay me for it. And the day they were supposed to pay me for the assets I moved, they fired me. I moved on to work for one of my clients, a very large, worldwide, well-known company. Owner had taken part of his company private and I set up his family office for him and worked for him for a few years. And I still take care of people who have been with me for a long time, who are older, who trust me, and I help whoever I can because I believe everybody deserves good information. So I have a background that includes equity analyst for almost 30 years, a fund manager, individual account managers, corporate money manager, all of that. And I've been doing this 30 years. That's how I'm wired. And that's pretty much it.
So, I want to get your opinion on Nesara. I know you're very, very educated in the world of finance. So, what is your opinion on Nesara?
Well, I believe it's a plan for the better of society in the long run, and I think it certainly counteracts the financial engineering and corruption that exist in our current financial markets at this point. That's what I believe it to be.
Do you think we can keep going forward without something like Nesara? Do we have to have Nesara in order to save our economy?
I think that the current system, the Keynesian debt-based monetary system that we're living in, has basically run its course. Could they elongate it? Absolutely. And they have done it. As far as I'm concerned, I believe most of the countries are currently bankrupt and in debt beyond any repair at this point due to the fact that our rates are increasing and it's simply unaffordable without taxing people for every dollar they have. And Robert Maynard Keynes himself knew that this system would not last forever. There are quotes about it. And he refers to the fact that why should we care? We will be dead when it happens. So it's been a known inevitability that the system can't continue to perpetuate itself without being helped along and continually raising all the debt and burdening all the people of the world. You know, if we were to look at, Austrian economics, which isn't taught, Keynesian economics seems to be the only thing that's taught at the universities in the past 100 years. So it's all part of the divisive system that we're entrenched in at this point. And the thought of Nesara and people having more freedom is very attractive, and it's probably the way that life was intended to be lived, a bit more than what we're stuck in right now.
When it comes to you talking to your colleagues in finance, do they believe in Nesara, and do you have a hard time convincing them about the benefits of Nesara?
There are certain people who I can speak to about it. One person in particular, he and I have had a relationship in the business since I was probably about 25. He's very open to this, and he's all about humanity, like I am. So I'm blessed enough to have somebody in those circles who is able to see beyond. But most of them won't even consider it. And most of the market players today versus back in 2001, prior to 9/11, they're a whole different breed. Today trading is done mostly in paper pricing with futures options, etc., and solely based on technicals. We don't have the fundamental analysis going on that we used to see. So the people who are in these positions today aren't necessarily cross-trained. If you're an analyst, you're an analyst. You're not actually taking care of accounts and people. And if you're a portfolio manager, you're more of a relationship manager as opposed to someone who's picking stocks. So the way things have evolved, and the banks were very diligent about doing this, was to protect their intellectual property. So people don't grow to the extent that we were all trained in the 90s and prior to 01 and 08. So things are a little different today.
When it comes to Nesara, I see a lot of division in the financial community. Some financial experts, such as yourself, believe in Nesara, and other financial experts, they just don't get it. And because of this financial division, it's hard for people, well, for some people, to get on board with this whole Nesara thing.
Well, Nesara indicates to the current central banking system that they wouldn't have full control over as much as they do. And that's not something that most people are willing to think beyond. So the current central bank system, as many of you know, is really a central planning system. And you'll see how it drives how economies react to things. If you simply watch everybody react to the Fed in the markets, if you simply watch how this $1.7 trillion spending bill actually adds to inflation, therefore we know that the Fed has to move higher with rates. These things are all done in manufacturing inflation. If we had a full free market system, there would be enough competition to hold down prices and inflation wouldn't exist the way we know it today. So everybody right now has to live in a system that's designed and controlled by other people. If Nesara comes to pass, and people have more freedom of what to do with their blessings.
Your microphone is picking up some noise.
Oh, okay. If people are free of a system that's controlled like that, we don't know what can happen. So you have to really believe in Nesara. I think at some level you have to believe that the current system has run its course and has to end. And then I think you have to subscribe yourself to the fact, can we really move forward with another similar fractional banking system based on debt? Or should we be living in a completely different fashion and manner where that isn't controlled by institutions? And that's not easy for most people, especially in finance, who want to find science in it, when the reality is, economics is an art. So that's where your big disparity is going to be. And it's almost like pie in the sky chasing to think of Nesara. So I believe in Nesara and I hope for it for the good of everybody in the world. But I also believe that there's a chance that it doesn't come to pass. So you have to, with anything you see in the markets, you have to give a certain applied weighting to what you know and what you believe, and create your own best probability of that. And I think a lot of people have a hard time seeing outside of the rat race that they're currently locked in with work and insurance and children and feeding their families and paying their bills and all of that. It doesn't give a lot of people a lot of free time to think. And that's why you have so much a disparity as far as that goes. You also have people who are in the financial field who know nothing about the history of our central bank.